Hello, and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by three friends who love cinema. I'm Gus, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Nate and Alvaro. Tonight, you'll be staying in Room 120, The Batman, a masterstroke of genius directed by Matt Reeves. So go ahead, get comfortable, and throw on that Do Not Disturb sign as we solve the many riddles of Gotham City with The Batman.
Whoa, take it easy, sweetheart. Hear everything they say, ain't you?
What's going on, all you mass vigilantes? Thanks for checking back in the Grand Cinema Hotel. And we are here, the day of reckoning, the day that we've been waiting for God knows how long, The Batman. Oh my goodness. We've seen this movie twice now. We went the Friday that it came out, and we just went again this Saturday morning. And we're here to talk about it, man. I'm so excited. I don't think we should hop right into it right away, but like, how'd you guys feel about the hype surrounding this movie?
Hey guys, Gus here. I tried my best to actually not get as involved as I normally would in the lead up to this movie. I saw the first two trailers, and I think there was a third. I wanted to go in fresh because the Batman is like a very special thing to me and obviously a shit ton of people, right? And kind of like what we talked about last week with like the other movies. I remember when like Batman Begins first came out, I don't even know if I had seen a bunch of the trailers. So like I've gone into a lot of the Batman movies kind of fresh or not knowing that much. And when The Dark Knight came out, I remember it's not like I was really looking up movie trailers online or anything like that. So I love going into them and just being ready to have like the movie wash over me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it lived up to the hype, and I think it lived up to the hype for me because I didn't let it get too out of control.
Yeah,
that's what I'll say about that for now.
What about you, Ro?
I think right before the pause started, I said like it lived up to the hype and it gave some more. Yeah, it feels like it's been at least 3 years whenever this movie got announced. I'm just super excited for it. Really like Robert Pattinson's other work that I've seen. I haven't seen a couple of them, but he's definitely I've grown fond of his work. And when he got announced, I just thought it was gonna I guess because the way that they decided to pick him, I saw the direction the movie might go, and this movie satisfied that specifically. That like a Batman that I haven't seen, and I think it's gonna hold a special place for like a long time,
forever. Yeah, no, I think I feel the same way as you guys. I definitely tried to stay away from everything and stay off social media with surrounding the Batman and all that. But I mean, the hype was real. Like whether or not you were into it or not, like there's a lot of pressure on this movie. I felt like
Definitely,
and it fucking knocked it out of the park. I think like oh my god. But yeah, like just starting any Batman, like it really is such a franchise that, like you said, like so many people do enjoy and love and hold close to their heart. And I think that, when it was announced, the cast with Paul Dano and, everybody, Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, and then Matt Reeves, like, the hype was there. So
I think Ro made a good point about when Pattinson was cast. I think you automatically got a sense that this was going to be different than the rest of them. When you take into account like Christian Bale and Ben Affleck, like George Clooney and Val Kilmer and all of them, you kind of know what you're getting just by who is Batman, right? So like when it was Christian Bale and Ben Affleck, you knew you were gonna have like the macho Chad Batman.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's sick. I mean, all Batman is cool. If George Clooney had committed to being Batman, it probably would have been a good movie.
Probably.
I don't think Val Kilmer is a horrible one. And as we said last week, we loved Michael Keaton. As
classic.
Well. But I knew we were getting just a whole new sense of direction once we saw the cast. And I'm a big fan of Matt Reeves' previous work that I've seen, like the last of the two Planet of the Apes movies. I think that's a phenomenal franchise, probably one of the best franchises we've had in recent years. And I was a big fan of the original Cloverfield movie as well.
That's a fun one. I like that one too.
To see him being the director, I just knew that we were in good hands.
Yeah.
Especially because of the Planet of the Apes movies, how he finished that trilogy. I thought it was very strong. And Paul Dano as the Riddler. If you've seen There Will Be Blood and if you've seen Prisoners, this is perfect casting for this iteration of the Riddler.
Yeah.
It's definitely a role that's been more elevated than it ever has in the past. I mean, we've seen the Joker get his time as like a prestige villain. We've seen Bane get his time as a prestige villain, but we never seen the Joker really played like this. If you watch like the animated series or read any of the comics, you know that the Joker, or not the Joker, sorry, the Riddler really is like one of Batman's like top adversaries because of how smart he is. But we just hadn't got that yet in live action, and he really helps. I wouldn't say he steals the show because I don't know what would in this movie.
No.
I think every part of this movie is doing its best.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any weak spots, honestly. But I thought Paul Dano is definitely one of my favorite things in the movie.
I would
if I had
agree.
to pick just a few.
Because I think going like almost into the kind of the hype behind the movie with the announcement that the Riddler is potentially going to be the villain in this movie, it kind of set the tone for, because I know we had heard whispers like maybe this is going to be more of like a detective Batman movie. And I think with the Riddler kind of played into that, Robert Pattinson, and then you have the Nirvana song in the trailer. It's like, this is going to be different than a lot of the other Batman franchises. And it was.
Yeah. So if you spend any time online in the past week seeing people react to the movie, because there's people who, have already seen this a week before everybody else, they were bringing up homages to like Chinatown and Seven and Saw and all of these other things. And I don't know if they had said Saw, but for me personally, there was some things in this movie
100%.
where I was like, this reminds me of Saw or like Hostel or something like that, right?
100%.
I think this movie is a love letter to the type of detective / thriller. Well, that type of film is what I'm trying to say.
Like a noir almost.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a very respectable installment in that genre of helping to make it not just a fun drama, or well, not fun, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
how genre is treated as opposed to just like straight drama.
It really is like the rain washes away the dirt on these streets. That kind of movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
it's so good.
If you've seen the tweet, it's like, yeah, beat it, Toots. These streets ain't what they used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is Batman. And I feel like other than the animated series, I was telling Ro this on the way to the movie today, that I think the animated series and this movie are the best two iterations of Batman, and like really getting into who Batman,
like the core of what Batman is.
Yes, that we've been like, we had Keaton, and that was like the closest to like fantasy.
It's like campy,
right?
like fun, like yeah.
But the Dark Knight like the Dark Knight and the Batman Begins, well, that trilogy, sorry. I felt like it always shied away from the fact that it was Batman. And there was just so many things in this movie where I was watching it and looking at it and just single frames that I'll remember. In fact, yes, this is like the comic, or like this is like the animated series. Like, this is what I want. Or Arkham, the video games. Like, we all love those.
Yep.
And we know how good those are. And I feel like Matt Reeves took elements of every single piece of Batman and made this love letter.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. There was, like, you were talking about some of the scenes. Like, I know we sat next to each other in the movies, and we just look at each other. We're just like, Jesus, like, oh my God, like, it's just perfect, man. Oh, this movie was so much fun.
I had heard Matt Reeves talk about just like the reason he picked up this project, and he's actually a really big fan of the Batman. And same thing with Planet of the Apes, which is why he picked the movie up. And he says a big thing for him on projects is he only picks them if he can see himself doing it like out of passion. Like, he doesn't just pick something up because it pays the bills.
Everything's a passion project for him.
Yeah, and I think he was mentioning the movie The French Connection a lot with this movie, and I think I went into listening to him, his like selection and lenses for this movie is a lot of anamorphic lenses, so lenses that not necessarily are like the sharpest. He said he really wanted to do that on purpose to like give this like there's certain scenes that like something is in focus that like also it seems like Batman's looking at, but then like there'll be a crowd or something and it's kind of blurred, but it's like it's still reachable type of like feeling to, and I think it really gives to like the mood of the film, and it really elevates it to what is like an artistic look at what is the core of Batman. And there was sorry, I'm losing my train of thought, but there's another point I wanted to make.
Well, I want to kind of bounce off of what you just said about the lens selection, and I also think that one of the directorial choices might have been that it kept this movie being PG-13 because there's quite a few things in this film that are out of focus, and I truly do believe it's
true.
for the rating.
Yeah,
like if I was
be.
thinking as a filmmaker or as a producer, which I mean I'm not, but if I had that state of mind, it's like, okay, how do we keep this under the R rating so that, because Batman is for everyone, and it's especially for children, but there was quite a few things in this movie where if you had really shown them, I don't think everyone would be allowed to go see
No,
this.
I think this movie pushed it. I mean,
That's a good point.
I know we'll get into it like when we get into spoilers later, but there's a lot of stuff that I felt really pushed the ratings of this movie, honestly. Like, there's a lot to it.
We had been joking about, is this movie okay for kids to see?
I'm like, honestly, I don't know, man. Like,
then we started thinking about it. We're like, well, is any Batman okay for kids to see? Which is hilarious because it is for children.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the core demographic of any of these comic book characters. But, you know, when you've grown up with them for this long, it does start to feel like maybe we do need something a little more mature. And I definitely think that is something that other studios kind of shy away from, is this idea of not growing with your audience.
Looking at you, Marvel.
But I'm not trying to take a shot at them.
No,
I just
I
mean
know.
any franchise in general. I think movies are kind of scared to not be for everyone, which is like, it's on you as a adult, I guess, if you want to take your child to see this movie, which I think, I mean, if your kid is thinking this is real or that this is scary, you kind of need to lay it out for them.
Yeah.
This is just a movie, you know, and it really is fun, but I think it does push towards that, like, that intense thriller, even kind of on the fringes of horror type of fun that people have at the movies. And it's something we used to see a long time ago with, like, this movie did give me slight Silence of the Lambs, like, vibes.
Some parts for sure. Some parts for sure.
And some movies are just so intense on that, like, real shit level that's where the fun comes from. And I think this movie really leaned into that.
Yeah, I did. It really leaned into it. I would say it's a hard PG-13, but I mean, yeah, like, there's nothing in it that is like, oh my God, like, you know what I mean? But, like, you know, it's out there. It's not, you know, it's something you have to think about, I think. But, dude, this movie's badass, dude.
Yeah, and it's not scared to be badass either. Like, I think from the opening scene of where you first see Batman, you already get the idea of, okay, this is how this is going to be, right? And we're not going to get into that too much right now. We will do spoilers later on, and we'll let you guys know. We're going to have a whole segment about just spoilers, because I don't think I can really talk about this movie the way I want to without discussing, like, certain scenes.
For sure. There's so many things I really do want to talk about, like, specifically about this movie that so good.
Ro, do you have anything else you really want to say about the movie before we, like, get into it? There's some things I want to talk about on a broad, like, general sense, but is there anything you feel like you haven't said yet that you'd like to?
About
just the overall, like, vibe of the movie, or how your initial reaction without giving anything away.
No, I think I'm good on that. I have more stuff on, like, the look and stuff, but I think I'll bring that up when we talk about, like, cinematography and stuff like that.
Let's talk about who worked on this movie, because I think of all the movies that we have talked about, this is one of those ones where it's like, we need some shout outs here, and we need to definitely harp on some things. So we already said it was directed by Matt Reeves. The cinematography is done by Greg Fraser, who I'm sure you've seen his work. He's one of the best working right now. Hold on, let me pull him up. I just want to confirm this. Yeah, that he did Dune and Rogue One.
Vice.
So he did Vice as well. This guy just really has an eye. I mean, I know that sounds obvious to say, but what he's bringing to this movie is one of the most crucial and important things in the entire film. The look of this movie, oh man, dude, I don't feel like we've ever gotten this in any of the Batman iterations so far.
It's so stylish. Like, everything was done, like, every shot you could just feel was there on purpose. Like,
you know what? If you're a big fan of Batman Beyond, which I'm sure a lot of you out there are, I feel like some of the scenes in this movie and the way that they were shot is the closest we're going to get to a live action Batman Beyond, and I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about.
100%.
Yeah.
That is something we'll get into later. I didn't really think about what I just said until I said it right now.
Holy shit.
Yeah, some of those scenes, though, where I'm like, where have I seen this? And it's not, and I'm like, and it is Batman related. Like, that's what I was thinking in my head. And it just reminded me of Batman Beyond. And kind of Pattinson overall reminds me
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Batman
He does.
Beyond,
He does.
to be honest. But yeah, the way Greg Fraser uses the color red in this movie, which is as we know, Batman Beyond uses the red, the red bat. It just has really stuck with me, and I don't think you can use red enough in movies. Like it always adds.
It always looks good.
It adds this level of just intensity. I mean, red is a very intense, chaotic color, so I think it works so well when you're doing like a dramatic thriller, like what we have here. Nate, you're a huge Malignant fan as well as I am, so like the use of red.
Red is perfect. Yeah, no, it really does. Like it's like, oh shit, like here we go, like for real.
Like, and if you've seen the trailer, you know how much red is in this, but. Oh man, like there's so many images that just stuck with me that I'm gonna remember for a very long time, and it's that all has to do with Greg Fraser and his vision for this movie.
I do think he's worth bringing up just because it's the same reason that Dune gets elevated last year. I think visually, like you can say obviously it's due to the director, but him working with Denis Villeneuve and working with Matt Reeves on this movie, and both of them being stylistically standing out from any comic book movie, I think is something that obviously it has something to do with him. And looking into that, I had found out that he did this with Dune, and him and Matt Reeves actually did this more extensively for the Batman. So they shot the movie digitally, and then they go and run it through film, and then they rescan it again digitally to try to give it this. Matt Reeves wanted to give the Batman this texture. Kind of like when you're watching it, it stands out to you. It feels
works.
like you're immersive. It feels like you're there.
You notice that within the first scene, like the first few shots. You're like, oh shit!
And through like use of like those anamorphic lenses, and he did bleach bypass too to try to just make it look like this 70s film, but still give it that cleanness of what like being shot now, like being able to be put on IMAX, you know. And I think what you guys are saying, that's all those choices that you can make as a director and a cinematographer, like being conscious of the director having that direction for it, it elevates the movie that you're making to this whole completely different thing that hasn't been done with the Batman. And the thing is, this character's 80 years old, and Matt Reeves said that like he adores him very much, and he's a very big fan of the previous iterations of the movies. He says all of them, and he's like, "What? When I signed up for it, it's like, okay, if I want, I'm gonna do this my way, and if WB lets me, then I'm gonna do it." And they let him, and he's like, "This was the way that I felt that I could add to the iterations of Batman that hadn't been done yet." And I feel like this is why this film specifically stands out a lot to me. And yeah, and like Greg Fraser is just, and there's obviously else, we're going to talk about it after, but another contributor of like is a big reason why this movie gets like pushed.
Yeah. One last thing I really wanted to say about the cinematography was that you can't talk about Batman without talking about the shadows, and the use of shadows in this movie
is incredible.
Is scary. I mean, to be frank, like you know what I mean. Like this is the kind of movie that would make you scared of the dark. You know what I mean? Where it really the way that they have used lighting in this movie and the use of non-lighting to like have these shadows, it's so stylized, right? And it's so well done where you really are just like looking into it and you're like, am I seeing something? Am I not? Like it just totally immerses you into this movie all within like the first 3 minutes of it, you know? And I just had to bring that up. And I feel like the last time we saw shadows this good is when we were talking about Macbeth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we have a new contender in the use of shadows.
The shadow game?
Yes, in the shadow game.
It's so hard to not talk about the scene specifically, trying to not spoil it to add to your point here, but I'll try to just save it for we get into it.
Let's just give a shout out to the costume designing in this movie.
That's
because
good too.
I thought the look of the characters, it looks very lived in and real, and like this is actually a Gotham where people are like, what am I trying to say? I think that it brings that like what you've seen in the comics to life perfectly, and like it does feel like a lived-in world where like the Dark Knight kind of didn't feel like that. I would say like I think this movie has changed my view of the Dark Knight and the Batman Begins series as not as gritty or dark as people used to call it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, dude, no, that's very clean.
Yeah.
Like the Dark Knight series might be the cleanest Batman.
It's almost more like the Matrix. Like, you know what I mean?
Like slick looking.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
In this movie, the way it was shot, the costume design, the set design, all of the production that we see. This movie is just so much more immersive into like Gotham overall.
Yeah.
Like I loved the way that it looked. Like I loved everything about this movie, but I think the thing it did the most was the immersion. You know,
That's what I wanted
really
to talk
felt like
about
I was
too.
in it.
Like, because you really like this movie takes you through the city. Like, you really do get a tour of Gotham, which I feel like you don't. Like, you see like some sides of it in other different movies, but like this, you get everything. Like, you get churches, you get courthouses, you get the clubs, you get the club within the club, you get, you know, like you're everywhere in Gotham. You're in the back alleys, you're on the rooftops, and it's just like, I don't know, like it becomes a lot more, like you said, like personal than I think some of the other movies. Like, you really are traveling through Gotham with Batman.
I also think that the runtime, which has been a big topic of conversation, I think it helps this movie more than it hurts it. Like, I know some people have been saying that they think it's too long or that you could cut some things about it, but I think because of the nature of this movie, that it's like this detective noir type of movie, that being in it for 3 hours, it just adds to its case of like I don't feel drained when I walk out of this movie. I feel like more alive than I was when I walked into it.
No, because I will say that when we saw it for the first time last night, Friday night, I did say that I thought it was long. Like, I didn't think it was a bad thing, but it did feel long to me. And then rewatching it again today, I didn't have that feeling, and like I had that like in the back of my head. I wanted to see how I felt like about that again, and I really feel like every scene was important and every scene was needed in this movie, and it was crucial to the storyline. Which this story, I know we're gonna get into it, but might be one of my favorite Batman stories. About like, it's so good.
I think that due to that feeling that way too, though, is the way we watched it. We watched it last night in Dolby, which is really good too. But that joined in, that like helped in the immersiveness, obviously audio wise. It's like but today watching it in IMAX, I feel like we had really good seats right in the
IMAX
middle.
better.
Yeah, IMAX
And
is, yeah.
It just completely made you feel like you were there, you know. And I think this is a movie that I'm gonna really, really enjoy once we have it and own it and can play it 30 times. But the fact that I've seen it in the theaters this way is gonna be like a memory that lives with me forever, just because this IMAX, the last way that we saw it right now, the way it was just visually and the noise was just like, it seems like it's just so much better, and it's completely a film that's already very catered to being immersive, and then now you actually see it in an immersive way, and it's just maybe that's why I think it's so maybe that's why I think it's so well done. But I don't know. That's the way he wanted to watch.
It was 3 hours, but it felt like 2 to me.
Yeah, this shit flew today. Like, it really
I didn't
did.
feel that way at all watching this movie, that it was long or that it dragged. Like, from the first time I saw it yesterday, I was like, no, this is fucking it. And like, this is what most comic book fans in general want out of these movies, is for them to be like this.
Yeah.
And this movie wasn't scared of giving it to you. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why WB decided to finally get the balls to do something right, but
Thank you.
I'm so glad they did.
Yeah. Thank you. Like,
Well, I wouldn't say Warner Brothers overall, but the DC division of Warner Brothers, I'm glad that they're doing these side projects where they're just letting these creatives do their thing, like Joker and the Batman. Mm-hmm. Like, we've been very lucky with those 2 movies to see them the way we did, like getting those stories like that. That's like a childhood dream. Is like, what if they made a movie about the Joker? And like, yeah, they did. Like, it was pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, it was.
And in a way too, as like, I know all 3 of us really love the art of cinema. I think WB taking the chance and making a movie that's more auteur driven, that's so mainstream, that like obviously gets people like, this is the most packed we've ever been for a quote unquote AMC artisan film that we've walked into.
Yeah, definitely.
And I just think that proves that WB wanting to take these chances with Dune, Joker, and like the Batman now, that it makes people more open to seeing films that aren't just copy and paste like Marvel's formula. And in an era where Marvel Spider-Man No Way Home is just breaking records, and they hold 2 of the top 5 movies of all time, it just speaks like volumes for WB to finally realize that maybe their area should be to try to make these movies that are more artistically driven, because obviously when they are well done, or when they're done right, they're well done.
I mean, yeah, dude. When the DC division of Warner Brothers gets it right, they really get it right. Like
Yeah.
the Batman, the Dark Knight trilogy, Joker, the first Wonder Woman movie. If they had let Zack Snyder do his version of Justice League originally, we'd be talking about how good the Justice League was.
Yep.
So when they do decide to do things the right way, and I love Aquaman. I'm gonna bring that up anytime I can. That I love Aquaman.
We talked about Black Adam. Doesn't mean it's new. I don't have a reason to not watch it. Just try it out.
Yeah, I mean, if you're anti-rock, you're not gonna get over that. But I think Black Adam looks cool. I think all of these movies that we saw the little preview for in the beginning look very cool, but it's just about the execution. Because even Suicide Squad was good. The newest
I liked it. I had a lot of fun watching that movie.
If Warner Brothers and DC could just get out of their own way and do these movies the right way, it's like you're giving people the better thing, and you don't even realize it.
But it does that's a really good point, because it just shows how broad or of audience that like the DC fans are. Be like, you could take something out like Peacemaker this same year and then have the Batman, and you have people who are into that dark artistic driven stuff, but then you could give us something that's more comedy driven and then I'm can't say the word right now, satirizing, there you go. And that's how many characters DC has at their disposal, and like when you give it to someone like that fits that mold for that character, I just think that's when it's well executed. And Matt Reeves is obviously a big fan, and I think that's why this movie it's for the fans.
WB needs to keep doing this. You need to hire people who truly love these properties and get actors who really love these roles, and you need to run with it, because this does work. And it doesn't need to be just like Marvel. It doesn't need to be like anything else. They can be their own thing. If they want to do standoff movies and spin-offs that don't have anything to do with the main universe, I don't care. Just give me these good movies like the Suicide Squad, like the Batman, Joker, like Wonder Woman. Because, they've stumbled more than Marvel has, or... Well, there's no one really to compare it to besides Marvel, because Star Wars is different. But they've stumbled, but when they get it right, they really do get it right. Mm-hmm. So if they could just figure out the formula, which should just be giving it to auteur-driven directors who have a vision for the movie, and then getting out of your own way, they really have something special here. And they should be, I don't want to say they should be, but they have the capability of doing what Marvel movies do as well, but elevating it even further, I think. Because they have the original heroes.
Well, it's like what you guys said. They need to hand the ball off and get out of their own way, and it hits. It really does. And that's why I think that it's really cool. Like what you guys were just talking about is you get these different movies. Not every movie that they release after the Batman needs to be like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They need to be different, and I think that's where we keep bringing up Marvel, but like you said, it's the only thing to compare it against. That's why I get so bored of that. It's the same movie over and over again. It's cookie cutter. But then you have stuff like this, get out of your own way and do different things. And it's a lot of fun.
I think that's the reason why I like the DC movies so much, is because you can have the Batman and then you can have Aquaman, and they're two completely different things where they shouldn't even interact with each other. And I think they both work because of the fact they're not trying to be okay, well, this Aquaman needs to be a little more dark and gritty to match this Batman.
Exactly.
This Batman isn't positive enough to be next to Superman. I don't care
if
you don't do it. I just want good character-driven stories.
Exactly.
And I feel they do that.
You look at the comics, and the comics aren't the same either. They're totally different. Each comic has a different feel, so lean into that. You know what I mean?
Gotham is different from Metropolis for a reason.
I will say I think that comes from what before it's kind of known as the Pixar circle, where it's a repeated formula of storytelling, and then Disney buying Marvel. Because we talked about this before, but the only other movie that really stands out to me in terms of being, obviously besides The Dark Knight, but that stands out to me in terms of being really good, it's also Logan. And Logan is a Marvel movie, but it's not done by Disney. And I think, and also the other one that to me it's not that special, but to some people is Deadpool. Also, again, not done by Disney, and again just shows that Disney's really trying to push No Way Home to get it an Oscar nomination, right? And
that's not happening.
DC has even back when we talked about last week, Danny Elfman was getting them,
and they don't beg.
They get what's deserved.
DC doesn't beg, and they get what they deserve
and
most of the time.
Heath Ledger got his for and they all got nominations for those films, and Marvel's trying to push, and I just think it's weird to me that in terms of that, creatively speaking, Marvel hasn't been able to go on par with DC, and for whatever it's worth, that might be better.
Hey, Marvel might give you 25 pretty good movies, but I would rather take the 5 really
like
good
bangers.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
for
Because
real.
how many of these movies do I really need in my life, you know, where it's like I've had so much fun watching all these Marvel movies, but none of them will stick with me ever the way that the Batman does, or like, well, just this Batman movie. Like, I'm going to go out and say, this is my favorite Batman movie. This is my favorite DC movie.
I think it is too.
I think it might be tied for Logan for my favorite comic book superhero movie
That's
of
fair.
all of them. But this movie, can we just get
Let's
into
get into it.
spoilers?
Yeah,
Okay,
please.
good.
Please.
Okay,
I'm
so
dying over
we're
here.
gonna
I'm like sweating. I'm
we had to even stop talking about the movie and talking about like all this other bullshit just so I could not spoil it. So if you haven't seen the movie, stop right here. Go see that. We're
Go
giving
see
you a
it.
recommendation
In IMAX.
and a demand that you need to go see this.
I know it's packed, but you got to make time whenever it's available for you
mask
and
up,
safe.
baby.
Yeah.
Trust me, AMC has like 30 showings of this every day right now, so you can find one that has good seats still. I would recommend IMAX or Dolby or something like
Yeah.
that, but I don't care if you see this movie with a projector that has a hole in it on the side. You
Go
just need to see this.
Oh,
So we'll catch you on the other side of the break, and we'll be ready for spoiler time.
yeah, let's get it. What's going on, all you drop heads? We're back with the spoilers, the moment that you've all been waiting for. Oh my god! All right, let's get into it.
Dude.
Fucking movie.
Okay.
Where do you
The
start?
way this movie starts with the Riddler, like
It's so
through his goggles.
with the breathing and
Like, we're going full spoilers.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm not going to break down every scene,
No.
but I'm going into detail because that's how much I love this shit.
Dude, wow.
Dude,
Through his goggles,
seeing
breathing.
the Riddler's, like, point of view was chilling.
It
Like,
was.
this was the beginning of a horror movie.
Set the tone.
Dude,
It set the fucking tone, dude, early.
when the mayor is watching the TV and then it cuts to the Riddler just standing right behind
Oh
him,
my
and it looks like
gosh.
no edit.
I didn't even. Okay, so the first time we saw it Friday night, I did not notice because like you get a shot from him like a little bit further in the back, and then you get a close-up shot. I didn't see him the first time, and so when
Well,
I watched
the
it
second
again,
time, did you notice that you can kind of see like a shadow behind him, like over his shoulder?
the second time I did, but the
So
first time I didn't.
he is there,
notice,
but
and
you
I'm
could
like,
hardly
oh my
notice it.
God, but yeah.
This
Oh.
is an amazing, amazing intro for a character, and I actually thought it was pretty scary.
It was.
on a horror level.
It
You
was.
know what I mean? Like, I think it really worked, and it automatically put you into that mood of like, okay, this is the Batman that we're dealing.
And it set the tone for who the Riddler is. Because I know, like, in, like, you know, the Jim Carrey version of it, it's kind of like this goofy, like, you know, aloof person. But no, like, this man he's going to get his hands dirty and he's going to come in your house and, you know what I mean? Like, so
That gave me
creepy.
Silence of the Lambs vibes, just from the
Oh, for
from the
sure.
beginning, and then obviously the way that he gets into killing the dude,
Yeah,
Check
dude,
that-
this is pretty.
and the sound that he makes.
The Riddler is what we were talking about in the first half of the show, where like using the anamorphic lenses may have been a choice to keep this movie
Yeah.
PG-13
That's
because this Riddler fucks people up.
He does, dude. He's ruthless.
Yeah, he really
He's
is.
ruthless.
I do think that this flirted with an R rating more than any Batman movie maybe has.
100%.
Paul Dano is. I feel weird even saying it, but it's like he's electric in this movie. You know,
is.
like if you've seen There Will Be Blood and if you've seen Prisoners, like that is the type of energy he's channeling.
Just
into
full
this
creep, dude.
performance.
Full creep.
He took those two great performances of his and he melded them into one just weird fucking guy who's wanting to unmask the truth of Gotham City. And like many great villains, he does have a point.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean,
that's always important.
His
for the
motives
villain.
are not immoral. His motives are moral, but his actions are absolutely not.
Gotham is just in every iteration. It's just a core to what Gotham is that it's this place that can't be fixed, and this is always going to be a losing battle
It'll
for Batman.
forever be a corrupt cesspool. If
And
that-
I
yeah.
think that the Riddler, what he's trying to expose, is just like how deep it really goes. But I feel like even this movie is barely the beginning. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like because
Yep.
it's a planned trilogy. I feel like in the second one, it's going to get even worse. And Batman even says it by the end of this movie because there's some narration that he does, which I think works
so
well. I
fucking
wish
well.
we'd gotten this before.
Yeah.
Ro made a joke. It's like the Paul Schrader School of Filmmaking. Like, lonely man writes his diary and narrates it. And it just fucking works, especially for an incel Batman.
Yeah, exactly.
real.
Especially for an
Most
incel
emo,
Batman.
edgy Batman I've ever seen in my
You know,
life.
I like that you guys talking about the Riddler. A dynamic of this movie that I really enjoyed that really just reveals the depths of him as a villain is I think that he like idolizes Batman, and his inspiration comes from Batman, and I think that's what makes it so almost like in the same level of Heath Ledger's type of like villain. Like they need each other. He's only created through Gotham and through what Batman is, and is inspired through him. And I just at the end, like watching when they talk to each other through the glass, it's so satisfying because it's also to see him not get what the Riddler wants.
I love it because, like what you said, like the Riddler sees Batman as his partner in this movie.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually want to give Marvel credit for this. I forget which one it is. Maybe it's Civil War, but it's when Vision is talking to Iron Man about the ethics of being a superhero, that once you become a symbol, you can't control the reaction of what happens after. And that, like, in those movies, like when Iron Man appeared, it caused all these fucking weirdos to come out of the woodworks. And I feel like that's what we're getting with this Batman as well. Is like that type of like Batman is the foundation for this new weird Gotham. That did we have all these, or well, not we, because we're we're not Gotham, but
Are we not?
did Gotham have all of these
Seriously.
weirdos running around before the Batman came around, or was it just city corruption?
Did he
You know what
open
I
the
mean?
door? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like Batman always opens the door for his rogues gallery to exist, because Paul Dano has a line about they are so interested in unmasking you, and that's not even the big picture.
They're
It's like,
missing the point.
yeah,
Yeah.
that Batman is the real you, and the Riddler is the real me, and like let's just get out of the way now. We have an introduction to the future Joker in this movie, played by Barry Keoghan, and right now we have like all these proto versions of these characters. Like Batman has been out for 2 years now, and who knows what weirdos he's inspired to just come out of the woodworks, you know?
Right.
And we're starting to see it with the Riddler, and we get a tease of the Joker. And I mean, the Penguin, I'm kind of getting off thought here, but I think the Penguin is the only character where I don't really see him devolving into like a comic booky superhero type or supervillain type
No,
character.
I think
he's going to stay more grounded.
I think
than
he'll stay
anything.
as more of like a mob crime head figure in this franchise.
I really like, so Matt Reeves is saying that because this is like a WB franchise, that he likes looking at a lot of, WB's done a lot of the authentic old school renowned mafia movies. And so like what the WB used to do before really well is give these movies the ambiance of that they had. And so he used a lot of that for this Batman, and that's what I get a lot from like Falcone and the Penguin. And the Penguin, this iteration of the Penguin is that exactly like Colin Farrell's able to pick that. Like what Gus said, I don't see him really devolving into a comic book character. He just seems more like a henchman boss type of character, and for this Batman, it just works.
It works so well. It works so well because you get that separation of like what we're talking about between the freaks and the weirdos. Because like, I mean, obviously we don't know because you don't get any crazy backstory of what's happened in the past 2 years since, you know, Pattinson's Batman has been a thing in Gotham. But it really seems like this Riddler is the first one to kind of have this gigantic plan that fucks up the entire city. You know what I mean? And like this is like the first supervillain almost that Gotham has probably seen, aside from regular crime, you know. So
yeah, I think the Penguin is the symbol of like organized
Old crime.
mafia, old crime, and then the Batman is this bridge between the mob and these freaks that we have.
fucked up
because
like new crime.
this
You know
whole
what I
new
mean? Like,
era of crime.
like I'm
in
gonna
Gotham.
flood the city of Gotham. And, like,
That's the most like supervillain shit.
yeah,
you know
it's
what I mean?
incredible. I blew up the reservoirs.
I poisoned the water supply.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's so classic almost. Like, yeah, I'm gonna flood the city, and then it's so good, dude, man. I don't know. Do you want to go through this movie? You just kind of want to bounce around to your
I
favorite
just want
parts
to
and
bounce
highlights.
around and talk about my favorite parts, and one of them is Zoe Kravitz.
Yeah, she plays plays a really good Catwoman, and she plays like I like it because it is more of like a realistic, grounded Catwoman, and it works really well with Robert Pattinson's Batman in this. I think
one of the things that works really well with her is that, like, the mask being such a simple mask, because we get little stuff like Batman picks up her bills, they're overdue, so obviously she's poor, and then she even tells them stuff like, you must have grown up rich the way that you talk, and I think that even stems to the amount of detail. Like, her mask seems like something that you would make. Oh, let me go to Target real quick and make and like cut something up, and just the way that she thinks. Yeah, I really enjoyed her.
I think she's a very strong character.
I think so
and
too.
A good counterpart to Batman.
for sure.
I mean, it's important to have a good Catwoman to have a good Batman movie.
Look what happens with Anne Hathaway. Yeah, you know. What I
Say what you will, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't think she's awful.
No,
I
she's not
just don't-
terrible.
I just think that The Dark Knight Rises was kind of okay, let's just get this over with.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
kind of how that felt as an end to a trilogy. It didn't feel as inspired as the first two for sure.
But
So,
yeah, I mean, like I liked the role that she played, and I liked the way that she played her Catwoman, and also her other connection to like Carmine Falco and everything like that. I thought it was really interesting.
definitely. I think she also ties into or she plays that middle ground of like the freaks and the old mob lifestyle.
She does.
Because, I mean, they don't really emphasize on if she's like the Catwoman who has superpowers or is like a very... Well, you guys saw Batman Returns recently. What's kind of the origin story there? It's like she's brought back to life.
She's
or some
murdered,
shit, right?
and she comes back to life, and she's still kind of just fucking off, and then she just wants her revenge kind of thing.
Yeah, I think because this movie isn't leaning into the fantasy aspect of comic books, that they have to keep Catwoman grounded as just like a stealthy cat burglar type, a seedy underground type.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It works. It works.
Yeah, I think the cast is phenomenal.
I think so too.
I really liked every single like main player that we have in it, even down to like some of the cops.
Martinez,
Yeah,
he's
like,
great. Like
The character acting in this movie,
Hey,
like,
Bruce Wayne.
everybody gets a couple moments to shine. Like,
put your hands behind your back, you goddamn son of a bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of stuff is so
like
good.
the police chief. I thought he had his moments where he was putting Gordon in check, and
Mm-hmm.
like I think that he, those few times that he's in the movie, he acted his ass off.
He reminded me of The Godfather. Dude.
Just the kind of guy who would be in The Godfather.
Just like the way that he talked, I thought was funny. Like it almost, you know what I mean? I thought it was funny.
Yeah, and we have to talk about Gordon. Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah.
My dude ate in this movie.
Wow, dude. Like, for real. I mean, he's an incredible actor. Like, I've been a big fan of his since I started watching Westworld, a few years back, but he killed it. And, like, his mix of... He brings a lot of comedy to this movie. And I also like his personal relationship with Batman in this series.
Yeah.
I'm extremely excited for because I feel like it's a little bit different than anything we've seen, especially recently. Like he really is like he rides with Batman. Like he shows up to what Batman does, and they kind of take people on with just the two of them. And
I
that's
love
badass.
this buddy cop vibe that
Exactly.
Batman.
There was like
Gordon
this
has.
anecdote that like someone's favorite part about this movie was that it just seems like two guys messing around. He's like he just calls him man all the time. He
Like
doesn't
the
even
funny
know
thing,
his
he's
name.
Like, he's like, I've known you for 2 years. I don't know your
Hey,
name, man.
man.
It's so
Yeah.
funny. It works, but they're down to ride because they both want the same thing. They
And they're
want
the only two
justice.
that trust each other in
Exactly.
this corrupt world of Gotham.
And I like it that we get to see I think we'll get to see his rise to power to become Commissioner Gordon too in this series, which gets me excited.
Dude,
So
the line delivery, like every line was delivered with passion. I think Jeffrey Wright gave the all the scene stealing moments of this movie for sure. Like he brings, like you said, he brings a lot of humor to it because him and Batman are kind of this like buddy cop situation,
Yeah.
like good cop, batshit cop, like the Penguin
The
calls
Penguin
them.
said, yeah.
Just some of the line deliveries, man. Like it will always stick with me. He's like, "That's why you're gonna punch me in the
face. That whole scene is hilarious, dude. It's so funny.
And I think that this movie really does have like everything. It's super serious. It's super tense. It's got its thrilling moments. It's got its scary moments. It's got its good action, but it still has time to be kind of funny.
Yeah.
And
It
I
has
think
humor.
it just needs to. Comic book movies always have to have somewhat of humor in them just because you have to be aware of what you are making.
Exactly. It gets a little too serious
It can
without the
get
comedy.
too
You know what I mean?
serious. Yeah, exactly.
Matt Reeves said that there's certain things people expect from Batman films when they come out, right? Like in every Batman film, there's certain things that have to be in it, and so he knew he had to do a car scene. And in that sense, I want to bring up obviously the amazing Batmobile in this film. What I really liked about the intro to it is just the blue flame very subtle. The engine roaring.
You see the front of it get all hot and starts turning orange.
Right.
And, oh
Yeah,
my
like-
God.
This Batmobile is literally a monster from hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Is how I would
fucking
describe it.
incredible.
And
The
it's
sound.
that American classic sound too.
Oh my.
Do you
God.
remember? This is a deep take here. Do you remember the Jimmy Neutron movie, The Ride the Bat from Hell?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what I thought.
That's what it reminds you
I
of.
thought of the Batmobile in this
funny.
movie.
I see that.
Especially when it comes flying out of the
Dude.
fire.
Oh my
Like, dude, yesterday when we saw this movie the first time, this girl and guy sitting next to me, I could hear them audibly like, like, whoa, like having so much fun during this scene. And I just think this is one of the great car chases that we've had in many, many
It's-
years, for sure.
This is that's a car chase that I've been wanting for fucking ever. Like it really, it was a long one too. It was so good. I mean, and then so like what you're talking about earlier, how you saw some things in this movie that reminded you of like the cartoons.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? The part in this where you get it's almost like it's like a back shot of the car, but it's kind of almost over the top, and you can see like him swerving through traffic a little bit. It reminded me of the cartoon. Like it was just so
Definitely.
good.
Something that he chose to do to again give it to that 70s look of how action movies were shot back then is he had the camera either be on the Batmobile or on the Penguin's car. And so that's why a lot of the times it just feels like we're in the car with them. Again,
Definitely. You know how you were saying that the French Connection is a big inspiration for this movie? Well, there's an amazing car chase in that movie as well that was done in it was done back in the day, like no permits. They shot that shit in real traffic. Like, you know what I mean?
Sick shit.
And this movie feels like that. Like, yeah, like you're saying, you can't have a good Batman movie without having a good car chase. And like, I thought the Dark Knight one was amazing. And I feel like this one one-upped it
Yep.
I think
in
so
every
too.
sense. Like,
Yeah.
I think this movie, what it does is it respects the Dark Knight and also tries to I'm gonna try and one up you. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
for me personally, this is my Batman,
Yeah.
quote unquote.
I'm a stand by
This is what I
this.
wanted out of Batman this entire time. I thought I wanted the Dark Knight. I thought I loved it, and then the real one came for me.
Yep, exactly. I stand by this shit so hard.
I actually can't believe we've gone this long because of the reason why this movie also feels like very true to my Batman type of statement is the score. Is there's just those
Michael
'cause-
Giacchino.
Yeah, exactly. But the way that we use the score, even I wanted to bring it up because in the car chase scene, it the way he's just the build up to that scene when it gets revealed and the almost the Penguin knowing that he's gonna be in pursuit, and this is what's gonna be chasing him, and just the whole way through the score and another part that really stands out to me with the score is a scene that when you were talking about the use of shadows in this movie, in the intro, which is amazing in this movie, in terms from starting from introducing Paul Dano's Riddler to introducing the Batman,
Yeah.
we can hear the Batman before we see the Batman. Like you said, his footsteps going up to the mobster that he's gonna introduce himself to before, and there's just you join into their fear of what's in the shadows. And again, it's I know that's in the sound department as well in terms of how well the footsteps sound and just that water that's coming through because it's raining too, and it just those little intricate details are what really pushed this film. That, like you said, you thought you got that with The Dark Knight until you get given this, and then you find out, like you said, The Dark Knight's clean compared to this, and this just really, for anybody who really likes, the Paul Schrader school of film, it just fits the narrative so well.
I'm happy that you brought up the intro again because that intro with Batman is really him setting the tone for who Batman is nowadays and the role that he plays in Gotham, and that he is vengeance and that he people fear him, and you know what I mean, and he is the shadows, and he juxtaposes himself at the end because he realizes I need to take on a different role for this
He's
city.
a hero.
Yeah, I need to do something else, and it's just it's a great little character arc in this movie for Batman. You know what I mean? To see him almost grow up a little bit and be there are bigger things I'm going to have to worry about now
The
compared
overall arc of this movie for him is going from vigilante to hero.
to hero. Exactly. It's incredible. It's so
Dude, the
fucking
intro,
good.
before we get off of that, like you were saying, the use of shadows and the score and everything like that, I think that scene, those specific things, really do just immerse you totally in the world of like, now I'm scared of the dark. Like, I don't want you to go into the corner. Like, Batman has guys getting hit by cars because they're so scared of going into the shadows.
That's
You know
what's
what I mean?
perfect too. Yeah.
Like that scene of the guy who robs the liquor store and then he's scared to run down the alley because he knows that the Batman could
The
be out
shadows.
there.
Sees the signal, yeah.
Yeah, and the narration as well. Like
That's
Batman
why,
says that he's like, it's a big city. I can't be everywhere at once. And like I've learned that fear is a tool to use. And like he's like, I am the shadows. I am everywhere. And like as far as people know, they don't know where I am. So I could always be watching you. He's like the scary Santa Claus.
Yeah, he's like the fucking boogeyman for the criminals. Like, you know what I mean?
And
Like,
that's
he
where
really
that
is.
ties into what we're talking about. What we love so much about the animated series, because there's a part where in the animated series that Bruce Wayne just goes off on telling him like, I am the night, like I am the dark crusader, like, and that you brought it up well. Like the fact that there's little scenes and it's not overused, which is why I think it works so well. Where he's narrating as he's putting it into the
It's only in the
journal.
movie 3 times.
He's like, I become a nocturnal animal, right? But that use of him overlaying that and then that guy's robbing it and he's so scared of just, I thought for a second, I kept looking at it, is he there? And there's no one there. There's literally just a shadow. And then like you said, up until this point, you're scared of him. And then he finally get revealed when the thugs come out. And there's something really important that I wanted to back up to what you said is like the full circle character arc of what I think really shows how well this movie is. He saves that guy from the subway and he's like, don't hurt me. After he moves all those like thugs off of him. But then towards the end, when we get this amazing scene when he puts the red light on with the flare.
Yeah.
And he lends his hand out. It's the first time that people are like, oh, he is a savior to us. And then it's topped off by, at the end, the lady that he carries off into the stretcher, grabbing him and be like, I'm finally, like, I'm hope to these people. They know there's somebody out there that's looking for them. And I think the film does that in such a special way with you guys, like what you said, just like through the beginning, how it starts off with him dialoguing this into his journal and how the scene and how it shows that it's so fear inspired and at the end is so much more hope inspired. At the end it does feel more like how the Dark Knight caps off and like he takes the villainy because he knows that's what's good for Gotham.
You know what you have me thinking right now by saying that is like this whole complete arc thing that we've been bringing up is that Matt Reeves only took 3 hours, what took Christopher Nolan three movies
Correct.
to do, which is that I'm not a vigilante, I'm not a criminal, I'm here to be a hero. And like, it takes all the way to the very last moment of The Dark Knight Rises for them to realize that Batman was the hero that they
after he fucking
needed,
nuked himself.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And in this movie, it's by the end of this movie, so I'm so excited to see where the future of this goes, especially since. Like, this was so edgy, this was so dark, this was so... right? But now it gives the next movie the ability to be different.
Change the tone, yeah.
Definitely. Superhero movies kind of always... Well, you know, not all of them, but, like, specifically, like, Spider-Man and then, like, the Dark Knight trilogy. This idea of, like, the hero not being accepted, and it feels like now going forward in the next The Batman is that we're going to have a more... accepted, respected, working with the cops Batman, like that he really is like the protector of Gotham.
And I think that plays perfectly because at the next film, it seemingly sets up like there's just going to be this crazy run for whoever's going to control Gotham now. So it's almost like Batman is going to have that support of, you know, cops and whoever else to actually handle something like that.
I think the ending, Ro brought this up yesterday, one of the reasons you liked this movie is because Batman doesn't technically win, even though he saves the day. I mean, the shit's already been blown to smithereens.
Yeah, like he didn't figure it out. He didn't figure it out in time.
Yeah, he didn't stop anything from happening. Right. But he set himself up now for like his character arc being complete because it's always ending where you started, but with a different like perspective,
exactly.
Right? And he says in his like last diary entry that like things are worse now than they were in the beginning, but that now it's like it's going to get even worse and then it can get better. So I'm really excited to see how the second one and the ender, like how they send this trilogy off of, can Batman save Gotham? Is it unsavable? Like, what are we going to get? Because I know it's going to be different and I know it's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
I
can't wait. No, Matt Reeves, you got me, man.
I saw some people saying they thought the third act kind of dragged a bit, but I thought it was some of the most pure Batman comic-y Arkham Asylum stuff that we've gotten, where you get to really see Batman in action. And I thought a lot of the scenes that we saw and the shots that we saw were just things I've seen straight out of the comic book. Like, there's a scene where he's hanging from a wire, just climbing through the sky, and I'm like, that is so cartoony, that's so video gamey, and I'm so glad that we're finally getting it, because I need that.
When he blows up the dome on Gotham Square Garden, and then he not repels but falls down and just like
that's so
that's
good.
It, like that's Arkham Asylum shit. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, the warehouse scene that we've talked about that we love very much. I feel like that was the first time we had really seen that kind of action, and now the warehouse scene is still maybe the best, but like action wise, right?
Yeah.
But this one definitely is either second or tied for first, like with the action, I think.
And I will say, like, all the action in this movie hit. You know what I mean? Like, it really did.
It's very visceral, and maybe it's just because of the formats that we saw it in. Like, you can feel the punches.
Dude,
you can feel
that's
the
what
kicks.
I'm saying. He punches so hard. Like, there's no way, dude.
Especially when he takes the adrenaline.
Dude,
Yeah, dude.
holy
I
shit.
really liked seeing that.
I did.
That was
Because
cool.
especially in the Arkham games, like
Yeah.
there's a couple times where you shoot yourself up.
You go crazy.
The reason I really enjoyed that was because in the iterations, like you said, various iterations that we've gotten and then that I've seen, there's a point where he becomes very old, and at that point he juices himself up all the time. So I feel like it's really almost like a nod to like, this is how it starts, like, yes, he has to, we see the scars on his back, like he's starting to, like, it's gonna put a toll on him no matter how long, and it's been 2 years, so it almost gets to a point where it's just probably the start of it, where he gets his ass kicked sometimes and he needs an adrenaline to like just get him back up.
I mean, this Batman gets shot a lot.
Yeah.
I know.
More
Imagine
than any
taking
other Batman, it
a
feels
double barrel
like.
shotgun on the chest like that. Oh
Definitely,
my god, dude.
I think it's because he's in year 2 is why we see a Batman who's likely to get shot so often or get captured. Or I think there's maybe 2 or 3 moments in this movie where he's either knocked unconscious or down for the count. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where he's going to have to figure out a way to get himself out of the situation. And speaking of getting yourself out of the situations, one thing that I thought this movie really excelled on was the use of the gun. What do they call that?
The grappling hook?
The grappling
Yeah,
gun.
it was so good, dude.
Right? Like,
It was
that's
perfect.
very important to who Batman is.
It is. That's
I
his
think-
It's a very
weapon.
crucial tool.
That is almost an ode. Him being a Batman fan is an ode to, because we watched 89 and we talked about it. Like when he goes, where does he get those cool gadgets? And it's one of those things like you have to include it into a Batman movie. You have to use the grappler in some way, like you said, the way that he runs down the building. In some way, he has to use a gadget that you're like, of course he has.
I
that.
love the fact that in this world that he wears the contact lenses that record video.
That
and
is
he just watches.
That is the
everything back
coolest
and, like,
addition that I think that
Yeah.
this movie has done gadget
that was
wise.
new. I'd never seen that before. In
I
Batman.
thought this was taking things from the animated series, and by that I mean like part of the aesthetic is that in the animated series it's probably set in the 90s because that's when it came out, right? But it always had this like those noir qualities and this idea of like new technology but like in an old world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kind of reminded me of like something like BioShock as well,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like it's a modern day, but some of the stuff just looks so old. Like the equipment that Batman and the police use, it does look like someone who's in year 2 of their journey. You know, like some of the stuff just looks like, well, it doesn't look like anything that actually exists. I mean, to our knowledge, right? But it doesn't look brand new either. It doesn't look like a billionaire is using this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like his Batcave is cool and everything, but it's not like some of the other Batcaves that we've seen in the past. You know,
I
Like,
did have 2 points for both of those things. He said that I'm like mixing both of them now. The Batcave thing threw me off. So like, did you see how it's like a building as opposed to Wayne Manor?
Like an actual manor?
So
Yeah.
it's like it's Wayne Enterprises, the building, and he got a lot of the idea from. He like would look at like Rockefeller, like where Rockefeller would have lived, right? So it's like this time where it's like a Gothic building, and like you said, at what the time, like when Rockefeller's making a lot of money, was very futuristic to a point. But all of these rich guys had their own like private train stations, and so that's where kind of the idea of what the Batcave came from. Because like if you kind of tell, there's a scene where he pulls up with the bike. And right up top, it kind of says Wayne, like,
This is Wayne Terminal.
and it was their own personal kind of, and he got that idea from a bunch of, again, those 70s movies where that's like the kind of like they do stuff like that, like hidden spots, and then also from like Rockefeller.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it works, and I like the idea of the Batcave being in Gotham instead of being in Wayne Manor. So like Batman is always like, "I'll be there in 20 minutes."
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I do like the idea of that he is like present in the city at any moment. He could show up, and this movie had me thinking like, where does he? So he takes the bat suit with him, right? He has to have it in his backpack.
I think he's wearing it.
Yeah,
because I the first time when we were watching it, I wasn't sure. But then the second time, like, I was looking at him, and he looked super fucking bulky with the sweatshirt on.
I mean, this is a Carhartt and double knee Dickie type.
You know what I mean?
Batman,
like he literally just pulls.
He may just be wearing baggy fit.
He literally just pulls a Superman and unzipped. You know what I mean?
That's
I don't know.
Matt Reeves had gotten the idea for the bat suit through obviously looking at the previous ones. The big thing that obviously Nolan also had an issue with is the neck plate. Because like having it just makes it kind of hard to move with, and he knew that he wanted Batman to obviously have this martial arts / street style type of fighting for this movie, and so they looked at a lot of present stuff like Atlanta police riot gear, but then also mixed stuff so they got like a lot of like what you were talking about, the set designers and like the fashion, like the outfit designers, like they worked really hard on making something that's. They know how special the cowl is, right? And like something that's perfectly mixed, like you said, that like looks like something a year two Batman would wear. And I think it's just funny that you guys say that because that's the intent, and it just shows how well he's like able to, as a team, they were able to execute that.
Definitely, the costume designing and the set designing, and this is incredible. I mean, unless I'm wrong, this had to have been shot in New York, right?
I would think
it is obviously New York, and it's not Chicago or Pittsburgh like The Dark Knight is.
I know some of it is England, but I don't know what city, the city part of it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know without actually knowing that Gotham is supposed to be New York.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you have Gotham Square Garden.
Like,
It is what it is, but
I think it works, and I do think that with the costume designing in this movie, this like low key gritty Batman, I feel like other Batman iterations really do like use that billionaire aspect of like, okay, so this is the most high tech suit. I wear the nicest clothes. I drive the nicest. Like in the Dark Knight, he's driving Ferraris.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? And this one's driving fucking. I don't know what kind of classic car was that.
This is
do either of you guys know? Okay, so he had like a classic Corvette, right?
Yeah, because I looked at you because that's like the original Batmobile.
Oh,
is that car?
Okay, so it's like the Adam West one or what?
I don't remember which one it is, but I like before when I was a kid, I would look up which cars were the Batmobiles, and whichever one of the first ones was that that car is, and they only know because of the way the shape of the side skirts are. But that car was like what they use ideally for the first Batmobile that they scraped up. So I thought it was cool that he was riding in that one.
Cool.
I think it just adds to the aesthetic that like it's present day, but it looks very old. I just feel like this movie really captured that vibe perfectly.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. I don't know. I don't remember if like in the other Batman series, but I thought it was interesting that he's driving himself. Like when he's Bruce Wayne. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Being a billionaire and stuff.
I mean, he does in The Dark Knight because there's that one scene where he purposely saves...
The Lambo?
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
he crashes the Lambo.
That's what I was like, I couldn't remember, but it stood out to me and I was like, interesting.
I was going to say that's another aspect of this film that I really enjoyed was that we saw a lot of in between Bruce Wayne Batman. So he's like a motorcycle biker with like, just shadowy eyes, and he just has binoculars and he's stalking people, or he still does a lot of what Batman would do, but not dressed up as Batman. And I think that like gives us some time to just really know that he almost never turns it off at this point in his stage, the clock off to be Batman.
That's a good point. There's like no difference between Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Exactly.
Bruce Wayne is taking a back seat in this iteration.
And I think that comes from Matt Reeves says that he likes taking these projects on, and you said you really like Planet of the Apes. It's because he likes humanizing the characters that he gets given through these comic books. And he's like, Batman has all this stuff about him, but ideally he is a psychological, like, not experiment, that's the wrong word, but in terms of like what happened to him in terms of the story is like it would be detrimental to anybody to have to see that as a child. And this movie, I think, does that very well because we see a struggling Bruce Wayne when he is without the cowl, and it almost seems like and the Riddler tells it to him, like, Batman in this universe and time, he is more Batman than he is Bruce Wayne. He doesn't care about, he doesn't know how to help Gotham as Bruce Wayne, because that's why the mayor, oh, I've been trying to call you, and they say you're a hard man to reach, and he doesn't really care. He's like, oh, you're past, all the Waynes have always been philanthropists, and I can't get you, like, you haven't done anything. And in terms of, he doesn't feel that he could really bring anything as Bruce Wayne. So truly he feels that he is Batman most of the time. And I feel like this movie completely, in ways that even if you don't know that idea, obviously it just shows it to you. And that him being that in between Batman, like, not dressed up as Batman, but never turning it off, just seems like his only way of, like, this is the only way I could bring honor to the Wayne name in the way that I think is suitable.
Yeah.
I think because of the story that we have with, like, the Waynes being just as corrupt as any other family.
I like that
and
too.
that this Batman kind of rejecting being Bruce Wayne is why we, like, I think it all ties together, like, with the look of him, like, how he doesn't really, I mean, obviously he's using his money, but it doesn't look like it. You know what I mean? Like, he's a very low-key Batman. Like, the suit, the car, like, I mean, the Batmobile that we have in this movie is, like, I'm sure some guy in Ohio or something has a fucking crazy-ass car
That looks like
he
that.
built in his garage just like that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Where it's a more realistic Batman in that sense of, like, I'm not just going to use my billions or, like, in The Dark Knight, all this military-grade equipment that Wayne Tech or whatever created. You know what I mean? He doesn't really dig into that, and I think, like I said, he's a Carhartt and double knee Dickie type of Batman who rides around on a motorcycle and wears eyeshadow and stuff like that. That he has nothing to contribute as Bruce Wayne, the way that other Batmans do.
That's
like,
what I was going to
yeah,
bring
no,
up.
it's just about being Batman, which I think it works, dude. And yeah, Matt Reeves, the way he tries to humanize these characters who are characters like Caesar in Planet of the Apes and like Batman, I think that's where he really succeeds.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like Guillermo del Toro in that way, where it's like, I'm going to take a character who's not human and make you feel for them even more than any human character you possibly could.
Yeah.
And that's just I think that's, like, just one of the things that he does best out of any directors that
I
are
agree.
working right now. And I'm so glad that he's doing, like, these big budget blockbusters, because these are the kind of blockbusters that we deserve.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Damn right.
We saw a lot of trailers today for these, like, big, huge movies. And I've told you guys before on the pod that that's the kind of stuff that made me love movies as a kid. And I think this is the type of movie, if you're younger, that it's going to make you fall in love with the art form of what is possible. And this is how you use the money. You know what I mean? Like, the costume design, the set design, the actors, the writing, the lighting, just every single thing you can think of. It felt like I was seeing every last dollar being used in this movie. And I think that's what people love. And that's why these types of blockbusters are the type of movies that people love the most. And it's because it's movie making magic. You know what I mean? It's like, let's go. We're doing this balls to the walls. And it pays off every time when you have a movie this big and this epic, I think.
Hell yeah.
And Matt Reeves was actually saying that they asked him, do you see yourself ever, like, going back to, because he's obviously been in blockbusters for a while. Like, his name is kind of blockbusters. Like, ever since Cloverfield, all of his movies are pretty big. Yeah. And he was saying that usually he's been blessed that he's been given the chance to make these blockbusters, but he's like, every film that I make is very personal to me. He's like, the Planet of the Apes films are very personal to me. There's a lot of personal themes that I put into these movies, and the same is with the Batman. Like, and so I'm lucky enough, he's like, to make blockbusters that are very personal, and I think that's why my films work. And if I'm lucky enough to be able to work in that I get that happy, like, they allow me to keep making these blockbusters that I feel that I put a lot of myself into, then of course I'm going to keep making blockbusters. He's like, but yes, of course, I'd love to make more, like, smaller films later on, but as of right now, I feel very lucky to be known as a blockbuster director, and one that I feel like I put a lot of my personality into these films that people might not know. And I think, like you said, it just, like, those Planet of the Apes films, even when they got rebooted, it was something that people thought were like, why would you want to do that? And he really brought a different element to it. And I just think it just comes from straight passion. And again, bouncing back to what you said, like, WB getting people that are just passionate about their characters, and the same thing with Denis Villeneuve with Dune, is like, it just shows. And these things have been around longer than like 30 years. So there's people who are now between the ages that we are, and they're older than us, that are renowned directors that have this source material.
Yeah.
I think it's the sweet time where you can have somebody who's been reading it for years, and then have somebody like our age enjoy it because somebody can make it that like you can trust. And I think the characters that the WB have that like dynamic.
Definitely, dude. Since we've been talking about Matt Reeves and the Planet of the Apes movies, I do think we should bring up Alfred in this movie because it's Andy Serkis. And,
Yeah.
you know, Andy Serkis is one of Matt Reeves' greatest contributors, especially being Caesar. I think that, oh boy, can that guy act as a fucking monkey. But Ro had an interesting point yesterday that he was telling me that he kind of thought that the Alfred character was underused, but that his opinion changed today in the second viewing.
Interesting. So my opinion, I don't think I thought that he was necessarily underused. I think he's undervalued by Batman in this movie, and I think that's why it kind of works. And it's a very interesting relationship between Alfred and Batman in this movie because, I mean, throughout Batman, like, they obviously kind of push back on each other sometimes, but I don't ever think you've really seen them this disconnected as you have in this movie, especially in the beginning before, you know, the bomb goes off and stuff. And I think that's like a testament to like what we were talking about in the beginning of the movie, where Batman is and how he is alone and he only is the shadows, and he realizes like, no, like there's stuff out here that matters and I need to make a change for the better. Yep. And I think that starts with his rekindling of the relationship with Alfred when he's like in the hospital and he wakes up, like, which you kind of made a funny point where Alfred wakes up and Bruce Wayne's like, why'd you lie to me, bitch?
Dude, you know I mean? Can I get some water or something? You're like, dude,
bro,
I almost died.
Like,
yeah.
But I liked him in this. I thought he did a really good job, and I'm curious to see how, hopefully, his role will maybe expand in the next couple films.
I think it will expand.
I do too.
I think that because of this being like an emo incel type of Batman, that, of course, I mean, within 5 minutes, he gives the most hormonal teenage answer I've ever seen, which is like, "You're not my father,
You're not my dad, Alfred."
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I know."
And that's kind of who Bruce Wayne is at this time in his life. And like you said, I think the Alfred almost dying is what wakes him up and snaps him back into the reality of, I do have other people to live for besides myself. And he does say that he's not scared of dying, but that the fear of like losing someone that he does love is greater to him than dying.
Which is probably why he pushes it away, like, you know what I mean? But you can't do that.
I think Selena Kyle also helps show him that he's not alone, that there's someone else out there who's kind of like him as well. So I think that dynamic between Selena and Alfred are what grounds Batman back into his reality of like, you know, Batman's the type of guy like, I'll kill myself to do this.
No, exactly. Like, the fool cuts a damn, like, you know, the electricity thing.
But that he realizes in this movie that he does have other things to live for. So, like, his relationship with Selena and his relationship with Alfred, which he learns to cherish more. And I think it's important. And it kind of reminded me of the original Spider-Man movies when Aunt May's in the hospital. Like, when it was happening, I was like, this is the Aunt May moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seriously.
No, it's true.
So I do think that Andy Serkis will be used more in the second one. And we already got to see what type of Alfred this is, because not every Alfred is the same.
No,
some of them are
different.
underutilized. Some of them are integral to the story. Like the Batman '89 Alfred is
A butler.
an afterthought. Yeah,
Yes.
he's a butler.
Yes.
He helps out sometimes. Michael Caine is the epitome of what Alfred
Yeah.
is, right?
True.
And this new one with Andy Serkis is, we see that he trained Batman, which I think is very cool. The idea of Alfred being like, what was it, like MI6
MI6,
or whatever, right? So Alfred has this particular set of skills, right, that he passed on to Batman, and it makes me wonder more about Batman's past as well. Like, so I'm wondering if the next movie is going to either dive into go full on with the mystery that you're not going to get everything about this Batman. You're just going to have to leave it to your imagination, or if they are going to show us
Lean into the background a bit.
Yeah, the background, which I'm hoping for the first thing. It's like, okay, sure, Alfred trained him. Good enough for me. I don't know.
I don't need a whole lot of
that.
origin for Batman anymore. You know,
No.
like, let's just continue on what we're doing. And I do want to say really fast that I feel like the Alfred in this movie almost feels more of like an older brother figure to Bruce Wayne than a father. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of the vibe that I got from it. So
The point I had told Gus in the car was that every iteration we get of Batman up until now, on the live action has been an older Bruce Wayne. So of course, Alfred
Alfred's
is
gonna
down.
be ancient.
And he's down though too. Like he's seen him go through it. But we're talking about year 2 Batman. This is still an experiment for Batman himself. He's still documenting what's happening because he doesn't even want to remember. He has to look back at the footage. But there's nothing to imply to me that necessarily this Alfred agrees with him being Batman. He's putting off all of his Wayne. He's telling him like, you're gonna lose everything. He's like, I don't care about that stuff. And I think that's what's really. Maybe at first I was always so hard to compare it to Michael Caine's iteration of it, but it's like, well, this is also a different Batman. And I think with finally what you said, the Aunt May in the hospital scene, like moment, and it's just their interaction to know that like, yeah, he almost dies. Andy Serkis doesn't have anybody either. He only has Bruce Wayne. And it's just interesting, that dynamic that they have, that it's like, why would I ever lie to you? Like, he lives with that guilt too, that like his parents were killed. And I just think what you said, the fact that he's kind of like an older brother here, I think we saw the moment that solidifies that Alfred is down for him to be the Batman.
Yeah, true. And I even like in the beginning when Bruce Wayne kind of tells him to piss off, and Alfred he grabs a cipher and starts trying to help him out anyways. Like,
Definitely.
That was a point that I brought up too, that I told him, I was like, at the end of the day, you do see that he cares about him because he blows him off, but he still tries to help him with the decipher, and he does help him. And yeah, there's so many just little details to this movie that make it the masterpiece that I think that it is.
Damn
What
right.
do you think? You guys ready to cut this?
Yeah, I think I'm probably.
'Cause I could probably go
I could
on.
probably keep going, but no.
I'll probably start repeating.
Yeah, exactly.
I just enjoyed this so much. I still don't feel like I'm done taking this movie in. Like, I need to see this again. I'm going to watch this countless times. It's going to be on HBO Max next month. So if you're someone who doesn't go to the theater anymore, I understand. You are going to have to wait a bit, but it will definitely be worth it.
100%.
I'm going to watch this on HBO. I'm going to buy the Steelbook in 4K when it comes out because I need this. I love this. This is everything to me. This is what movies can be. This is what movies should be. Not necessarily in tone. It doesn't have to. And not every movie has to be this dark and gritty. That's not what I want. But I'm just saying, like, these types of films, and I mean, like, made by filmmakers who love the stuff that they're making.
That's what I wanted to say. Is the thought and the care and the craft that was really put into this movie by everybody, the writers, the costume designers, the actors, Matt Reeves himself. Like, it really shows and it shines through, and it just it honestly it warms my heart that we get a movie like this. Like, it just gets me even more excited to see where this series is going to go.
Batmania is back.
It's back, and I'm on the Bat train.
You guys want to give it a rating? Or Ro, do you have one last thought before we give it a
I
rating?
had one question that I wanted to give you guys.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that the little kid will play any role in being Robin?
I have not even thought about that.
I did think about that, but if they are going to do that, it would be subverting the whole Robin history that we know from the comics and stuff like that. So I don't think so, but that is something I want to see going forward. Like, and it needs to be a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
I did not think about that, but to me, like, when I was watching that kid was just like a reflection of Bruce, which, I mean, obviously Robin is kind of too, but I don't know.
Is it a Broom Boy situation where he might not ever come back?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I just think it's interesting because people have been talking about it, and there does seem to be. I kind of sided with you. It just seems that when he looks at the kid, he remembers why he wants to be Batman, and he wants to prevent what happened to this kid. And he's just integral to how this story started. The kid too. That was the first person we saw on screen is that kid, And I guess just to tie it out, you guys were saying WB did a really good service knowing to this character, knowing what it has, knowing that the Batman is special to a lot of people. You could do this bad and people will eat you up for doing it. I feel this iteration is a very unique addition to an already huge collection of films that I love. Matt Reeves obviously really, really loves the Batman and everybody who worked on it. And like you guys said, I'm really just glad that this got made and however long it took.
Superman is supposed to be their golden boy, but it's Batman.
It's Batman.
And they at least have the decency to treat Batman the right way, even though they don't Superman.
That's true.
But that's a topic for another day. Let's get to the ratings. I'm giving this 5.
It's a 5.
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
5.
I think it's a perfect film, dude. Like,
Yeah.
I have no complaints about it.
I mean, I hope this isn't my favorite movie of the year. Not because I don't want it to be. It's just that I want there to be so many good movies where it's like, oh, I can't decide. But this is definitely up there already.
so far of what I've seen this year, this is my
I mean,
favorite.
I haven't seen a lot this year, so I'm not
Exactly.
going to say that there's been a bunch of movies that are worse than this. But this is it, man. Like, this is what movies are.
This is why I get excited to go to the movies.
Exactly.
Yeah, it really is.
So that concludes our spoiler talk side of the Batman 2022. Yeah, if you've made
Wow.
it this far, like and subscribe on YouTube. I'm sure you're going to see this, so DM us your thoughts on the Grand Cinema Hotel on Instagram. And yeah, Bat fans, go see this shit, man. Why are you listening to me? Go see this.
Go make a mask and go fight some crime and shit. God damn, dude.
This slaps.
Oh my god.
All right, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.
See ya.